Hey everyone, I'm Cara Bradley. I'm here with my good friend Cheryl Jones, and we're about to have a conversation about mindfulness, how it works, how it can help, and how it can really help you change your life moment to moment every day. Cheryl and I are both mindfulness teachers, and we talk about this stuff all the time via phone or when we catch each other somewhere around the world. And we thought, you know what, let's just record it for everyone to enjoy because this is a very casual conversation about how mindfulness can really help you in this new year. So, hey, Cheryl, so happy to have you here online today.
Yeah, we're finally doing this. I'm so happy that we're setting our intention to bring this to others in the new year.
Yeah, I mean, we have been talking for so long about just the need for just simple conversation about mindfulness practices and how so many people are confused about one, how to start a practice, and two, what it is. I mean, what is this thing called mindfulness? Can you start us off with how you would define this practice or just the general idea of being mindful?
Sure, and I do agree that it's so important because when something becomes popular, it's easy for things to be misunderstood. And so I know that our intention is to do our very best to bring what we've experienced as far as, what is a true mindfulness practice and such. And so for me, if I were to boil it down to three words, I would say that mindfulness is about present moment awareness. So, well, what is that? What does that mean? So, in the distracted, very busy world that we're all living in, it's almost as though the present moment and our ability to be present in the moment has kind of gotten squashed out with all of our busy minds and a preoccupation with the future or the past. And so, coming into this moment, what is happening within me in this moment? What is happening around me in this moment? And observing what's happening without judgment and with curiosity and kindness and patience. So that's how I would describe mindfulness. And of course, there's much more, but that's a good place to start, I believe.
Mhm. Yeah. You know, years ago, I read a quote from Pema Chodron, who's a meditation teacher and really profound teacher. And it shifted my life. And this was a couple of decades ago. And she wrote in one of her amazing books, "We keep missing the moment that we're in." And it stopped me in my tracks. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm missing the moments. And I realized throughout my life how many moments I've missed because I've been so stuck in my head, right? Stuck in thought, in future and past, in worrying and doubting and fearing and comparing and all this kind of noise that happens mentally. And so for me, being mindful is not missing the moment that is happening right now. I mean, it comes down to that for me. What can I do? How can I train myself to show up for my life right now? And so as a mindfulness teacher, that's really what I'm bringing forward to people is how to use some simple practices and activities to not miss our lives.
So powerful. And, this idea of why is it so hard to do this, I think is largely because we don't realize it, but we are running around in what is known as fight or flight mode, where we've got, this body is in a state of hyper arousal, heart rate and blood pressure are increased, and the blood in the body is all in the extremities, and we're on high alert. And this being in this state is a very toxic state. We have stress hormones pumping through the bloodstream like adrenaline and cortisol. And this really compromises our immune system and makes it so that we can't truly think straight. And so I think what we talked about, Kara, is how do we help people recognize that that is kind of the human condition, that most people without a mindfulness practice are in fact running around in a chronic state of fight or flight. And what is something simple that our viewers can do to um, get out of fight or flight and get back to rest and digest. And so we've talked about the breath. And so maybe I'll just kick us off with what are we talking about here? What is awareness of breathing? And then you can kind of take it a little bit deeper. How does that sound?
Good, go for it.
Yeah. So in my training with John Kabat-Zinn, started 26 years ago now, um, a program called Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction. The very first practice that we learned was awareness of breathing. And so this very simple act of being aware that the body is breathing. We're not trying to change the breath in any way or manipulate it. There's no breathing technique. It's simply stopping and noticing that the body is breathing. And so for me, it's about being curious. What does it feel like to breathe? You know, where do I feel my breathing? At the nostrils, at the chest, at the belly. And how is my breath? Maybe if I'm really stressed, it's going to be kind of shallow. Or if I'm, you know, like now I just came back from yoga class, so my breath is pretty relaxed and deep. And so kind of noticing, you know, how is the breath in this moment without any judgment? Where do I feel my breathing? And simply noticing what it feels like to breathe. So that by and of itself is a very powerful place to start connecting our awareness and our breathing.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's with us all the time, right? So it's one of the reasons I believe why we usually, when we're teaching mindfulness, is we start with the breath. One is because it's always here. And also, what I always find fascinating, because I have to remind myself, right? We all have to continue to remind ourselves. And actually, that's sort of what mindfulness is a reminder to be here. Isn't that right?
Yes, absolutely. How do we, as many great teachers, Ram Dass, you know, be here now? So it's how do we do that? Because the human condition, the busy mind, we always forget. And so the mindfulness practice, you're right, is remembering to come back to this moment, and the breath is the bridge to the present moment.
It is. It is. And oftentimes when I start a yoga class, I will, while everybody is just laying down, we're in a silent room, is to remind people to come back to notice the experience of breathing. So for those of you listening, this is just like the simplest thing you can do, is just to notice the experience of breathing. Notice how it feels in your body, how your chest expands and deflates, or how your belly changes form as you inhale and exhale, how your breath sounds, where you feel like the breath initiates from. Is it your nose? Is it your chest? And so what happens is when we start to notice our breath, we are noticing our body. And a reminder for me, and hopefully it'll help you out there, is that your body is always present. Your body is always in the moment. Your body can't be in the future and it can't be in the past. Your body is always here now. So just by placing your attention on your breath, which is part of your body, it's part of your physiology, it is really collecting your awareness and placing it gently right here, right now. And so that's why the breath is so important. And in many mindfulness teachers will use the word anchor. You know, it's an anchor to present moment awareness, is just by coming back to your breath. Over and over again, we can always just come back to our breath and know that when we're listening and experiencing our breath, we are truly in the moment. We are being mindful.
Beautiful, powerful. And one of the biggest benefits is, you know, in a world that's racing, again, we are all being asked every day to do more, do it better, do it faster for less. And so we kind of run around trying to get through the day. And again, what we talked about is fight or flight mode. And the beauty of the breath, or the power of the breath, is that it gets the body. You talked about physiology. It changes our chemistry, right? It gets the body out of fight or flight mode, gets back to what we call rest and digest, or back to homeostasis. And there are so many benefits to that. The main benefit is that it slows the rate at which those stress hormones are pumping through the bloodstream, so that we can create a sense of well-being. That's what helps us in the body know that, okay, I've got this.
Yeah, and we do it anyway, right? It's common sense. And I think John Kabat-Zinn says it's simple but not easy, right? This whole practice of present moment awareness, of showing up in the moment, of being alert here right now and engaged in life. It seems so simple, but it's not easy to do or sustain over and over again. And so that's why we both practice and teach mindfulness. And I'm sure you're like me, Cheryl, in that, you feel like you're saying the same thing over and over and over again. But when I began these practices a few decades ago as well, there's the phone.
Oh my gosh. It's on my computer, I turned my phone
And
on.
that's life.
I'm noticing how my body just went into fight or flight mode, noticing myself feeling and embarrassed, and I'm just gonna put my 2 feet on the ground and breathe in and breathe out and press the reset button. And so there's a real life example of how also in mindfulness practice, we can use the breath to quickly recover, to quickly regroup, and to gather ourselves back up again, all through the day. Because the truth is that we're constantly facing surprises, things that happen that we would never expect, right? And so it could be in a conversation that we're having with somebody, our spouse, our partner, one of our children. It could be with our manager or a coworker, or at a meeting when somebody is saying something that we don't like. All the time we're being surprised by what life presents us with. And so this anchor is something that we can always call upon and kind of re-ground ourselves, re-anchor ourselves, breathe in, breathe out. Okay,
Yeah.
I can be in this moment as it is, whether I like what's happening or not, with a sense of calmness and clarity. And so again, the breath can help us to recover quickly when we are surprised by things that happen or don't happen.
Or don't happen. Yeah. Well, thanks for that quick recovery there with your phone on your computer. It's great. And what's so interesting, and actually what I'm going to say first is the idea of being mindful. We all yearn for it, to show up for life, to be more present, to be a better listener, to be more open-hearted and compassionate, to experience, our children, our family, our lives every day, the sun, everything. We don't want to miss those moments. So to cultivate a simple mindfulness practice, or to carry along with you during your day a handful of mindfulness activities, these are ways that can help us to cultivate the capacity to be here now, right? So there's many ways that you can do this if you're just starting out. One of them being a formal meditation practice that we're going to talk about probably in our next session. But for today, I think what we'd like to offer you all is the understanding that you can just come home to your breath over and over again throughout the day. And in coming home to your breath, and even maybe pausing for 5 or 6 breaths, can help shift you from that fight or flight, crazy busy mentality to a more rested, calm, and alert way of being in the moment. So this mindfulness activity of just being aware of breath, coming home to breath, experiencing breath can be in your pocket in any moment. Isn't that right, Cheryl?
Yeah, and thank you so much for really, distilling it, because it is a very simple practice. The idea is, remembering. And when we talk about formal meditation practices, we know that that's what strengthens our capacity to be present in the moment. It is very hard to remember to be present in a conversation, or when somebody cuts us off in traffic, or when we're trying to shovel lunch while we're returning emails, or whatever else we unconsciously do because we're on autopilot and just trying to get to the finish line. It is very difficult to remember to be present in those moments without a formal mindfulness meditation practice. But I think this is a good start. If we could just simply start to wrap our minds around getting out of fight or flight, back to rest and digest, getting us out of that state of hyper arousal, hyperactivity, to learning. It's almost like learning how to pause and be aware of the breath. That, if we can remember to do that, as you said, multiple times or 3 times a day or once a day for starters, to start wrapping our minds around, that is available to me. This awareness is something that is available to each of us. It's an innate part of being human. It's just that it's not anything that really gets cultivated. We uh, our social conditioning and our education and all of our training is about, performing and doing and learning and being tested. And so we haven't really learned to cultivate this awareness that is innate within us. So what we're inviting everyone to do, and reminding ourselves,
Mhm.
is to make this a priority without having to change anything. And I think the beauty here is that we're not saying this has to be another thing that gets put on the to-do list. This is in your day, as the day is, coming back to the breath, as you're saying. And that, if we actually did that, it would be a total game changer. It would transform the way that we engage in the day.
Absolutely. I look at it as a micro practice, these micro practices. So just to review and wrap up for you all in this session one, we're here to introduce what it is to be mindful, and why you would even want to go down this path, which is to shift from fight or flight, from hyper arousal, from being stressed and crazy busy all day long, to actually being able to pause and land in the moment that you're in and experience the moment, right? Not to miss the moment, but to be in the moment and be engaged in your life. So that's sort of the why behind this idea of being mindful. And so what we're offering to you today is a simple tool to be aware of your breath, because your breath is in your body and your body is always present. So just to come into breath is to come into your body and out of your head, and to drop into the moment that you're living in. So to walk around all day long and just remind yourself to breathe, to remember to breathe, to pause, as Cheryl said, to take 5 breaths. And that's just a really simple micro practice, a little micro win, I call it, a little win throughout your day. And it will accumulate some merit. It will accumulate. It will be a cumulative practice, so that then we can take a next step, which we'll do in our next session, and to look at the more formal practice of mindfulness meditation. So we're going to wrap this up. Cheryl, can you tell everybody where they can find more about what you're doing and who you are?
Sure. So my website is themindfulpath.com, and there you will find a number of tools and resources. I have a program called Mindful Me, and 2 books that I've written, and some free podcasts. So I hope that you'll find something there that will support you on your journey. And I
Great.
know, Cara, you have resources to share as well.
I do. I do. carabradley.net. And I have a book out as well, and a weekly podcast where I talk about all things mindful and being engaged in life as well. And so Cheryl and I are offering a whole lot out there on our websites. We also have the links down below in the description. And be sure to check out our next couple of sessions. And if you feel called to, share this with a friend who you think might benefit from these simple practices as well. So wishing you all a happy new year, and thanks so much for joining us.